Howdy. This is the Jeff Akin Show on this Financial Friday. It is May the 29th. I enjoy doing Financial Friday because I love talking about money. I'll just be frank with you because it's about money. I mean, people for far too long have de-emphasized the importance of money. Now, money shouldn't rule us. There's no doubt about that. We should be ruling money. God is not against us having wealth. He's against wealth having us. And so I think we must understand the principles of economics. And one of the best guys to go to for that, you have Jesus and Milton Friedman. I just posted on Twitter, quoting Jesus and Milton Friedman on the same show. It's the Jeff Akin Show. I'm telling you, it's so good, and we are so far lacking information in this area, and we've been fed a lot of misinformation for a long time. So I want to do what I can to help the educational process here, and I enjoy listening to this stuff too. So without further ado, here's Milton Friedman destroying this guy's 3 questions on the Jeff Akin Show. It's Financial Friday.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Friedman, is there an economic system now or historically that has allowed free enterprise alone to determine which direction the economy goes? And secondly, I have a 3-part question.
Okay, fine.
Secondly, in economics you have resources, and how to best use these resources is a value judgment, but it seems to me you can have either free enterprise decide or government decide or some combination. And don't you think combination would be the best alternative? And thirdly, if I can remember it, isn't there some benefit to having the government steal our money, which is what they do effectively? They hold a gun to our head and say, pay us 40% of your income or go to jail. They take this money and they give it mostly to government employees. Well, the government employees spend it. The marginal propensity to consume is pretty high. So the people who were robbed have to do something creative to get the money back. And isn't this creative activity the real wealth?
Well, I take it that they would have to be still more creative if 98% were being spent by the government. No, the third part of your thing is just pure fallacy from beginning to end. Because if those people who are now government employees were employed in creative activity and productive activity, they would also be spending their money. And we'd have a greater total around. All you're doing, let's suppose for a moment, take the extreme case, that 40% is being used just to have people sit around. The fact that they spend their money doesn't alter the situation. The only product there is what the 60% produce. And that 60% is divided among the 100%. If those 40% are also producing goods, then there are more goods to go around among everybody. You are just involved in a fallacy of looking at dollars, which is important sometimes, instead of looking at the real product, the goods and services that people produce and people consume. Spending isn't good. What's good is producing. What we want to have is more goods and services. And as I say, the obvious indication that that's clear is that if your logic were right, it would apply it for 50%, 60%, 70, 90, 98, 100%. And obviously you would see that that would be a bunch of nonsense at that stage. It is desirable to have some money spent by government for those things, those services that we believe we can get more usefully and more effectively through government. If people are getting their money's worth, fine. That's why it's very desirable to have governmental expenditures take place at as local a level as possible. Because you, as a citizen of a small community, can judge whether you're getting your money's worth. You can decide that you want to spend it. But when it comes to the federal government, you tend to think that you're spending somebody else's money. And you are in a way. But he's spending yours. All right, now let me go back to the first 2 items. Is there any example of a society in which the fundamental determination of the direction of activity was determined by free enterprise, by free competition? Of course. Most of history. Most of societies today. The government does have 40% of our income that it spends, but it wastes half of it. So that as a matter of effective matter, 80% of our resources are being determined by free enterprise now. And if I go back to the whole period of the 19th century, to the whole period of the great growth of the U.S., to Britain in the 19th century, the period when Britain emerged as a leader of the nation, At the height of Britain's power as a leading nation in the world, at the time of Queen Victoria's Jubilee in 1899, I think it was, or something, celebrating the 50th anniversary, the Golden Jubilee of her reign, when Britain ruled the waves and had an empire on which the sun never set. Total government spending in Britain was 10% of the national income. So, of course, there have been many examples over time at which free enterprise has dominated and predominantly been the major source of determination. Today, it's true in Hong Kong and Taiwan, in many countries around the world. All right, now your second question is, does not the allocation of resources involve value judgments, and isn't it better to have that values judgment shared by government and the people? Who is government? What's government? Is that something other than you and me? Is that something than us operating through a different mechanism? Who can make value judgments? Only people. Resources don't make value judgments. Governments don't make value judgments. People make value judgments. And the question is, what is the most effective way in which we as people can jointly, cooperatively express our values? No, we express some of them individually in the family at home, separately, people, you and I alone. We express some of them by doing things for ourselves. We express some of them through voluntary groups, Boy Scouts, churches, charitable organizations. We express some of them through cooperation on a broader scale on a free market, through business enterprises that serve as intermediaries between people selling their productive services, producing products, and selling the product. We express some of our values through doing things through government. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, provided we keep in control and don't let the government become the master instead of the servant. And the real problem is, in my opinion, that as we move from the local community to the state, from the state to the federal government, it becomes increasingly difficult for us to control the mechanism we have established. And that mechanism tends to control us. That was the great wisdom of the founding fathers of this country, of the people who wrote the Constitution. That Constitution was designed to limit government's powers in order to preserve the freedom of the individuals. And what has happened in the past 50 years is that the fundamental character of the Constitution has really been changed. We have broadened enormously the conception of what is a governmental power and what is not, and have departed from that limited government until we have created a Frankenstein, an unlimited government that threatens to destroy us.
Wow. Great words of wisdom from Milton Friedman. Dead, yet he speaks. He passed away in November of 2006. He was an advisor to Ronald Reagan, by the way. And one of the reasons why President Reagan was so effective in turning around a bad economy was because of Milton Friedman and the policies that Friedman advocated. The president was very smart in getting Friedman on the team. But you heard what he said. You know, we've gone from a limited government to an unlimited government. And it's very dangerous to do that because you can now see, look, I mean, did you ever think we'd come to a place in our history to where the federal government would be forcing us to buy a product? It's exactly what you have today with Obamacare. I mean, listen, the government bailed out General Motors and basically owned part of the company. What would stop the United States government from at some point saying every American must buy a General Motors car? Oh, Jeff, that would never happen. Yeah, you didn't think we'd ever have to buy insurance either, did you? And look what's happened. I'm telling you, we are headed for a catastrophe. Someone asked me about the last election cycle when Mitt Romney was running against Barack Hussein Obama. And they were asking about, who's the better candidate. And I said, well, look at it this way. Because you have to understand, I stopped playing for teams a long time ago. I've never played for the blue team. I played for the red team for a period of time. Now I don't. I'll look at it this way. I've got two cars to get my objectives accomplished. I got a blue car and a red car. I choose the red car, but my objectives is that's what I'm trying to achieve. I said, with Barack Hussein Obama and Mitt Romney, you have two guys here. One will take us into the wall at 120 miles an hour. The other will make us hit the wall at 60 miles an hour. Which one do you want? That's where we're headed right now if things don't change. If we don't change this thing, we have an opportunity in 2016 to really make a difference, both with congressional elections and with our presidential election. I just hope people will stop depending upon the government, exercise their freedom, and vote for the principles of freedom. This is the Jeff Akin Show. This has been Financial Friday on AR1.tv.